My name is Hannah, and I'm 24 years old. Never did I imagine I'd be standing outside my childhood home in the pouring rain, staring at locks that had been changed just hours before. My mother's words still rang in my ears. "You have no home here anymore." The confusion and hurt consumed me as I gathered my belongings stuffed into garbage bags. 2 weeks later, an unexpected letter arrived from a lawyer that would change everything. Before I dive into my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you thought would always have your back. Trust me, this journey has taught me what family truly means. Growing up, my father Robert was my rock. We had a special bond that I cherished, especially during my turbulent teenage years. Our home was a modest 2-story house in a quiet suburban neighborhood with a large oak tree in the front yard that Dad hung a tire swing from when I was 7. I spent countless hours on that swing, talking to my dad about everything and nothing. My mother Margaret was always the stricter parent. She had rigid expectations about grades, curfews, and appropriate behavior. While she wasn't cruel, her love often felt conditional. "I only push you because I care," she would say whenever I complained about her rules. Back then, I believed her. Dad was the buffer between Mom and me. Whenever tensions rose, he would step in with his calm voice and diplomatic nature, somehow making both of us feel heard. "Your mother means well," he would tell me in private. "And your daughter is finding her way," he would remind Mom. My brother Kevin was 3 years older and Mom's clear favorite. He excelled at everything naturally: sports, academics, making friends. Kevin always sided with our mother in family disagreements. "Just follow the rules, Hannah," he would say with exasperation. "Why do you always have to make things difficult?" As we grew up, this dynamic solidified. Kevin and Mom formed one team, while Dad and I formed another.
School was challenging for me.
Not because I wasn't smart, but because I learned differently. Dad recognized this early on and fought for me to get the support I needed. He spent evenings helping with homework, hired tutors when necessary, and celebrated every small victory. When I struggled with math, he created games to make it interesting. When I discovered my love for writing, he bought me beautiful journals and read every story I wrote. When college acceptance letters arrived, Dad was the one who sat with me to weigh options. Despite Mom's insistence that I attend the state university where Kevin had thrived, Dad supported my decision to attend a smaller liberal arts college out of state. "Follow your path," he whispered when Mom wasn't around. Those 4 years away were transformative. I flourished academically, made lifelong friends, and discovered my passion for graphic design. After graduation, I landed a job at a marketing firm in a city 3 hours from home. My departure was bittersweet. Mom seemed relieved to see me go, while Dad helped me pack with quiet sadness. Our weekly phone calls became our special connection. Every Sunday evening, Dad would call, and we'd talk for hours. He shared neighborhood gossip, asked about my projects, and always ended with, "I'm proud of you, Hannah." Mom occasionally joined for a few minutes, but usually passed the phone quickly. 6 months ago, the unthinkable happened. Dad called on a Tuesday instead of Sunday, his voice strained. "Just a bad cold," he insisted, but something felt wrong. 3 days later, Kevin called to say Dad had been hospitalized with pneumonia. By the time I threw clothes in a suitcase and made the 3-hour drive home, it was too late. Dad had passed just hours before I arrived. The funeral was a blur of black clothes and sympathetic murmurs. Mom moved through the rituals with stoic efficiency, barely crying. She seemed oddly distant, handling arrangements with mechanical precision. When I broke down during the eulogy, sharing stories of Dad's kindness and humor, Mom sat stiffly in the front row, her expression unreadable. I took a leave of absence from work to help settle affairs. The house felt empty without Dad's booming laugh and gentle presence. Mom retreated into herself, spending hours in her bedroom with the door closed. Kevin came by daily, but he and Mom often whispered in the kitchen, their conversations stopping abruptly when I entered. As days turned to weeks, tension grew. When I asked about Dad's will or financial matters, Mom became evasive. "These things take time," she would say dismissively. The lawyers are handling everything. Kevin backed her up, suggesting I was being impatient or, worse, greedy. But something didn't feel right. Dad was meticulous about planning. He wouldn't have left things unresolved. The more I pressed, the more Mom withdrew. Soon, she was barely speaking to me at all, while her hushed conversations with Kevin increased. I couldn't shake the feeling that something important was being kept from me, something Dad would have wanted me to know. 3 weeks after the funeral, I was organizing Dad's study when I found his leather-bound journal tucked behind his collection of history books. I hesitated before opening it, feeling like an intruder in his private thoughts. But as I flipped through the pages, my heart raced. Among notes about gardening and book recommendations were entries about updating his will. Meeting with Lawrence today about changing the provisions. One entry from 4 months earlier read, "Need to ensure Hannah is protected. Margaret won't understand my decisions, but it's the right thing to do." Another entry simply stated, "Called Lawrence again. Will finalized. Peace of mind knowing Hannah will be taken care of." My hands trembled as I read these words. What provisions? What decisions had Dad made that Mom wouldn't understand? And why did I need protection? That evening, I gathered my courage and approached Mom in the living room where she was reviewing bank statements. "Mom, I found Dad's journal. He mentioned updating his will recently."
Do you know anything about that?
The papers in her hands crinkled as her grip tightened. "You had no right to read his private writings," she snapped, color rising in her cheeks. I wasn't snooping. I defended myself. I was just organizing his things. But now that I've seen it, I think we should discuss what he meant. Mom stood abruptly, gathering the papers. "There's nothing to discuss. The estate is complicated, and the lawyers are handling it. When everything is settled, you'll be informed of anything that concerns you." "But Dad specifically mentioned making provisions for me," I persisted. "I have student loans to repay, and my apartment lease is up soon. I need to know if there's something I should be aware of." Her eyes flashed with an anger I rarely saw directed at me. "Is that all you care about?
Money?
Your father is barely cold in his grave, and you're worried about what you'll get." The accusation stung. "That's not fair, Mom. I loved Dad. I just want to understand what he was planning." "What you need to understand," she said icily, "is your place in this family. Your father always coddled you, but I won't have you questioning my handling of our affairs." I retreated, hurt and confused. That night, I called my best friend Jessica, who had known my family since childhood. "Something's wrong," I told her, explaining about the journal and Mom's reaction. "It's like she's hiding something from me." Jessica's voice was concerned. "Have you considered getting legal advice? If your dad updated his will, you have a right to know the contents." The suggestion shocked me. "I can't bring lawyers into a family matter," I protested. "That would make things even worse with Mom." "Hannah," Jessica said gently, "your mom is already treating you unfairly. If your dad wanted to provide for you, you should honor his wishes by finding out what those provisions were." Her words stuck with me, especially as I recalled Dad's last phone call. He had sounded unusually serious when he said, "Hannah, I've been making some changes, tying up loose ends. I want you to know I've made things right." At the time, I thought he was being philosophical about life in general. Now, those words carried new weight. The next morning, I decided to look for contact information for Dad's attorney. In his home office desk drawer, I found a business card. Lawrence Patterson, attorney at law. With shaking fingers, I dialed the number. A receptionist answered, and I explained who I was. "I'm Robert Miller's daughter. I believe he was a client of Mr. Patterson's, and I'm trying to get information about his will." After a brief hold, the receptionist returned. "I'm sorry, Ms. Miller, but we cannot discuss any client matters without proper authorization. If you are a beneficiary, you will be contacted at the appropriate time." Frustrated, I hung up. The appropriate time seemed deliberately vague, and Mom clearly wasn't volunteering any information. That afternoon, I returned from a walk to find Kevin's car in the driveway. As I approached the house, I heard raised voices through the partially open window. I paused, not intending to eavesdrop, but my name caught my attention. "We need to make sure Hannah doesn't find out until everything's transferred," Kevin was saying. "You know how she gets. She'll cause problems." "I'm handling it," Mom replied tersely. "The attorney said there's a waiting period anyway. By the time anything happens, it will be too late for her to contest." "Contest what?" My stomach nodded as I tried to make sense of their words. Whatever they were discussing, it was clear they were deliberately keeping me in the dark. My father's cryptic journal entries, my mother's evasiveness, and now this secretive conversation, all pointed to something significant being hidden from me. That night, I could barely sleep. Dad had wanted to protect me, but from what? From whom? The painful possibility that it might be from my own mother and brother was almost too much to bear. But as dawn broke, so did my resolve. Dad had always taught me to stand up for myself. If he had made provisions for my future, I needed to discover what they were, regardless of who tried to keep me from the truth. A week later, the three of us sat around the dining table for a rare family dinner. Mom had made pot roast, Dad's favorite, though no one acknowledged the empty chair at the head of the table. The conversation was stilted, focusing on safe topics like the weather and neighborhood gossip. But beneath the forced normalcy, tension simmered. I waited until we were finishing dessert before clearing my throat. "I need to ask something important," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "I know Dad updated his will before he died, and I believe there were specific provisions he made for me. I'd like to know what they are." The clatter of Mom's fork against her plate cut through the sudden silence. Kevin's eyes darted to her, then back to me. "This again?" Mom said, her voice tight. "I told you, these matters are being handled appropriately." "By whom?" I pressed. "Because I called Dad's attorney, and they wouldn't tell me anything. Don't I have a right to know?" Kevin leaned forward, his expression hardening. "You know, this is exactly why Dad felt he had to protect you. You've always been irresponsible with money."
What are you talking about?
I demanded. "I've been financially independent since graduation." "Please," Kevin scoffed. "Dad paid your tuition, helped with your apartment deposit, bought you a car. Meanwhile, I worked through college and saved for my own house. You were always the princess who got whatever she wanted." The unfairness of his characterization stunned me. "I worked part-time throughout college. I have student loans. Dad helped you too, he co-signed your mortgage." "That's different," Kevin insisted. "I needed that temporarily for the business. I paid him back." "Stop it, both of you," Mom cut in. "Hannah, your brother has been here, helping me every day since your father died."
Where were you?
"Off in another city. Too busy with your own life to care about family." The accusation hit like a physical blow. "That's not true. Dad encouraged me to follow my career. He was proud of me for being independent." "He babied you," Mom retorted. "Always making excuses, always giving you special treatment. Do you know how that made your brother feel? Do you even care?" Tears pricked my eyes, but I fought them back. This isn't about childhood grievances. This is about Dad's will, and why you're both being so secretive about it. Mom's face crumpled suddenly, her composure breaking.
Fine.
"You want to know? Your father changed his will. He wasn't thinking clearly at the end. He made arrangements that aren't fair to this family." My heart pounded. "What arrangements?" She looked away. "It doesn't matter. The lawyers are reviewing everything. These things can be challenged." A cold realization washed over me. "You're trying to contest Dad's will, aren't you? You're trying to overturn whatever provisions he made for me." "We're protecting the family legacy," Kevin interjected. "Dad wasn't himself in those final months. He made irrational decisions." "I want to see the will," I said firmly. "I have a right to know what Dad wanted." Mom stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "You have no rights in this house anymore. Your father isn't here to champion your every whim. It's time you learn some respect for those of us who actually maintain this family." I stood too, unwilling to be towered over. Respect? Is that what you call hiding Dad's last wishes? Is that what you call plotting behind my back? Dad wanted to protect me. Maybe this is exactly why. You need to leave, Mom said, her voice dangerously quiet. Until you learn your place, you are not welcome here. This was Dad's house too, I countered. I'm not going anywhere until I get answers. Something in Mom snapped. She slammed her hand on the table, making the dishes jump. This isn't your home anymore, she shouted, her face contorted with rage I'd never seen before. Get out. Get out. Kevin stood, moving to Mom's side. You heard her.
Go cool off somewhere.
This conversation is over. Shaking with adrenaline and hurt, I grabbed my phone and jacket. This isn't over, I promised. Dad would be ashamed of how you're acting. I stormed out into the evening air, tears finally breaking free as I walked aimlessly through the neighborhood. Rain began to fall, matching my mood, but I welcomed it. The cool drops masked my tears as I processed the confrontation. Had my family always resented me this much? Had I been blind to it because Dad protected me? After an hour of walking, my anger gave way to exhaustion. Whatever was happening, screaming matches wouldn't solve it. I needed to approach this rationally. I would go home, apologize for raising my voice, and suggest we all meet with the attorney together to understand Dad's wishes. But when I returned to the house, I was met with a shocking sight. The porch light was off, and several black garbage bags sat in a heap by the steps. With growing horror, I realized they contained my clothes, books, and personal items. I rushed to the door, but my key no longer worked in the lock. Panicking, I rang the doorbell repeatedly. Through the side window, I saw lights on, but no one came. I called Mom's cell phone, straight to voicemail. Then I tried Kevin's, same result. Finally, a text from Kevin appeared. Mom says you're not welcome here anymore. We packed your things. Find somewhere else to stay until you're ready to apologize and accept the family decisions. I sank down on the porch steps, rain soaking through my clothes as the magnitude of what was happening hit me. I had been effectively disowned, locked out of my childhood home with nowhere to go. My belongings were stuffed into garbage bags like trash. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. With trembling fingers, I called Jessica. Through tears, I explained the situation. I'm coming to get you, she said without hesitation. Pack what you can into your car. You'll stay with me tonight. 20 minutes later, Jessica's headlights illuminated the pathetic scene, me, drenched and defeated, loading soggy garbage bags into my trunk. She helped without comment, then hugged me fiercely. This is wrong, Hannah, she whispered. So wrong. In her apartment that night, wrapped in borrowed pajamas and a blanket on her couch, I stared into darkness. The family I thought I had was unraveling, revealing ugly truths beneath. Whatever Dad had tried to protect me from, it seemed he had good reason. But without him, I felt utterly alone against the storm. The next morning, reality hit hard. I had no home. Most of my belongings were hastily packed in garbage bags, and my family had effectively cut me off. I called Mom's number again, straight to voicemail. I texted, explaining I needed to retrieve more of my things and asking when we could talk calmly. No response. Jessica was incredible, assuring me I could stay as long as needed. My couch is your couch, she said, trying to lighten the mood. But we both knew this was a temporary solution. My job was 3 hours away, my apartment lease there ending in 2 weeks. I had planned to stay at my childhood home while figuring out next steps after Dad's death. Now, everything was thrown into chaos. I need to find work here, I decided. At least temporarily. The job search was humbling. With my graphic design experience, I had hoped for something in my field, but the opportunities in our hometown were limited. After a week of applications, I landed a position as an administrative assistant at a local insurance company, a far cry from my creative role at the marketing firm, but it would pay bills. Finding affordable housing proved even more challenging. Jessica helped me search, driving me to viewings after work. Most decent places required first and last month's rent plus security deposit, a significant sum I didn't have immediately available. My savings had dwindled during my unpaid leave after Dad's death. Finally, I found a tiny studio apartment above a garage. It was barely 500 square feet, with a kitchenette smaller than my childhood bedroom's closet. But the landlord, an elderly widow named Mrs. Abernathy, seemed sympathetic to my situation and only required the first month's rent up front. "Everyone deserves a safe place to land," she said, handing me the key. "Your father was a good man. He helped my husband with legal matters years ago." Moving in was quick. I had so little. Jessica brought over spare dishes and towels. My bed was a futon that doubled as a couch. The space was functional but sterile, nothing like the warm home I'd grown up in. As days passed, a persistent sadness settled over me. I missed Dad with an ache that never subsided. I missed my mother too, not the angry woman who had locked me out, but the mother who had once tucked me in at night and taught me to bake cookies. I even missed Kevin, remembering childhood games before competition and resentment tainted our relationship. I tried calling family friends, hoping for insights or support. The responses were telling. Some avoided my calls entirely. Others were sympathetic but vague. "Family disputes are complicated, Hannah," or "I'm sure your mother has her reasons." A few seemed genuinely shocked by what had happened but were reluctant to get involved. My father's old fishing buddy George was the most forthright. "Your dad worried about this," he admitted when I ran into him at the grocery store. He knew Margaret could be difficult. Said he was making arrangements, but didn't share details. Lawyer stuff, you know? Night after night, I had the same dream. I was locked outside our house during a storm, watching through windows as Mom and Kevin sorted through Dad's belongings, occasionally holding items up to the light before discarding them. I would pound on the glass, but they couldn't hear me. Then Dad would appear beside me, trying to tell me something important, but his voice was always drowned out by thunder. I'd wake gasping, my pillow wet with tears. The dreams left me exhausted, affecting my performance at the insurance company. My boss noticed my bloodshot eyes and distracted manner but was surprisingly understanding when I explained I was dealing with family issues after my father's death. The toll on my mental health was significant. I lost weight, my clothes hanging loose. Dark circles took up permanent residence under my eyes. Jessica worried constantly, urging me to see a therapist. "I can't afford it," I admitted. "The new job barely covers rent and groceries." One evening, sorting through the salvaged belongings from my childhood room, I found Dad's old watch tucked into a sock. It was nothing fancy, a simple Timex with a worn leather band, but Dad had worn it daily. I remembered him checking it during our phone calls, commenting on how quickly our time together passed. Inside the watch band, I discovered a folded note in Dad's handwriting. "For my Hannah, may time always be on your side." I clutched the watch to my chest and finally allowed myself to sob uncontrollably for Dad, for my lost family, for the person I used to be before all this happened. When the tears subsided, something had shifted inside me. Dad had faced challenges throughout his life, but always with integrity and determination.
He wouldn't want me to crumble now.
That night, I began researching inheritance laws in our state. I learned about probate processes, challenges to wills, and beneficiary rights. I discovered that as a named beneficiary, I should have been notified officially about the will's contents. The fact that I hadn't been suggested possible legal impropriety. Jessica beamed when I shared my findings. "That's the Hannah I know," she said proudly. "Your dad would be cheering you on right now." For the first time since being locked out, I felt a flicker of hope. Whatever Mom and Kevin were hiding, whatever Dad had tried to protect me from, I would face it head-on. Not out of greed or vengeance, but because Dad had wanted me to know. I owed it to him and to myself to discover the truth. 2 weeks after moving into the garage apartment, I checked my mail to find an official-looking envelope. The return address read Patterson, Whitman and Associates, the same law firm on the business card I'd found in Dad's desk. My heart raced as I carefully opened it. The letter was formal but clear. "Dear M.S. Miller, as the executor of Robert Miller's estate, I am writing to inform you that your presence is requested at our offices regarding important matters related to your father's will and testament. Per Mr. Miller's explicit instructions, This communication has been delayed until specific conditions were met. The letter continued, explaining that my father had left detailed instructions about the timing of this disclosure. A meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday at 2 o'clock. I read and reread the letter, hope and anxiety battling within me. This was what I'd been seeking, official confirmation that Dad had indeed made provisions for me. But why the delayed notification? What specific conditions had to be met? The days until Tuesday crawled by. I prepared meticulously for the meeting, selecting my most professional outfit, a navy blue skirt suit I'd worn to job interviews. I wrote down questions, researched legal terms I might encounter, and tried to steel myself for whatever revelations awaited. Jessica offered to take the afternoon off to accompany me, but this felt like something I needed to do alone. "I'll call you immediately after," I promised. The law offices of Patterson, Whitman and Associates occupied the top floor of the tallest building downtown, a far cry from my humble garage apartment. The reception area featured leather chairs, fresh flowers, and framed diplomas. I gave my name to the receptionist, who smiled warmly. "Mr. Patterson is expecting you, Ms. Miller. Please follow me." She led me to a spacious corner office, where an older gentleman with silver hair and kind eyes stood to greet me. "Hannah," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Lawrence Patterson. I was your father's attorney for over 30 years, and I count myself fortunate to have been his friend as well." Something about his gentle manner reminded me of Dad, bringing unexpected tears to my eyes. I blinked them away, determined to maintain composure. "Please sit down." He gestured to a chair opposite his desk. "I know this meeting has been a long time coming, and you probably have many questions." "I do," I confirmed, settling into the chair. "Starting with why I'm only hearing about my father's will now, almost 2 months after his death." Patterson nodded, his expression somber. "That was at your father's explicit direction. Robert knew there would be resistance to certain aspects of his estate plan. He wanted to ensure everything was properly in place before you were notified." He opened a folder and removed several documents. "Your father revised his will 8 months ago, after his annual physical revealed early signs of the condition that eventually took his life. He was very clear about his wishes." Patterson handed me a sealed envelope. "He asked that you read this first, in private. It's a personal letter explaining his decisions." With trembling hands, I broke the seal and unfolded several pages covered in Dad's familiar handwriting. "My dearest Hannah, if you're reading this, I'm no longer with you, and for that, I'm deeply sorry. There's so much more I wanted to see and share with you. I need to explain some decisions I've made regarding my estate. These choices may cause discord in the family, but they are made with careful thought and complete clarity of mind. Throughout your life, I've observed concerning patterns in our family dynamics. Your mother, while I've loved her dearly, has always struggled with control issues. Your brother has unfortunately adopted some of these tendencies. I've tried for years to create balance, to ensure you weren't overshadowed or minimized. Perhaps I didn't do enough during my lifetime, and for that I apologize. What I can do is provide for you now. I've established a separate trust in your name containing the following: the rental property on Maple Street, which has been paid off for years, my investment portfolio, approximately $180,000, and personal items I've designated in a separate list. These assets are yours outright and cannot be contested by other family members. The family home and remaining assets will go to your mother, with provisions for Kevin, as they expect. They are well provided for, I assure you. I instructed Lawrence to delay informing you of these provisions because I anticipated your mother's reaction would be difficult. I wanted to give you time to grieve without immediate family conflict. I also wanted to ensure all legal protections were firmly in place before you were notified. Hannah, you have always been your own person, thoughtful, creative, and kind. These qualities may not have been valued in our household as they should have been, but they matter tremendously in this world. I'm so proud of the woman you've become. Use these resources to build the life you want. Know that my love for you was boundless and unconditional. All my love, Dad." Tears flowed freely down my cheeks as I finished reading. Dad had known, had seen the dynamics I'd tried so hard to navigate. He hadn't just been protecting my financial future. He'd been acknowledging a lifetime of subtle inequities. I looked up to find Patterson watching me sympathetically. He offered a box of tissues. "Your father was very concerned about how this would affect you," he said gently. "He wanted to spare you pain while ensuring your interests were protected." Wiping my eyes, I asked the question that had been haunting me. Did my mother and brother know about these provisions? Patterson's expression confirmed my suspicions before he spoke.
Yes.
They were informed shortly after your father's passing, as is standard procedure. Your mother was displeased. She indicated an intention to contest the will, claiming undue influence or diminished capacity. Anger flared within me. So, when I was asking about the will, they already knew everything? I'm afraid so. Your father anticipated this reaction, which is why he took extra precautions. He had himself evaluated by 2 independent physicians before making these changes, established the trust separately from the will, and documented his reasons extensively. The provisions he made for you are virtually contest-proof. And the delay in telling me, that was strategic as well. Robert specified that you should be notified only after certain asset transfers were complete, legally securing your inheritance before any challenges could interfere. That process finished last week. I sat back, processing everything. So, the property on Maple Street is mine? And the investments? As of today, yes. The property deed has been transferred to your name. The investment accounts likewise. Here are the keys to the property and all the relevant documentation. He slid a large envelope and a keyring across the desk. The house has been maintained by a property management company and is currently between tenants. You can move in immediately if you wish, or continue renting it out for income. My mind reeled with possibilities. The rental house was a charming 2-bedroom craftsman, nothing extravagant, but far nicer than my garage apartment. The investment income could help me restart my graphic design career, perhaps even freelancing instead of working for someone else. There's one more thing, Patterson added, reaching into his desk drawer. Your father left this in my safekeeping. He handed me a small box. Inside was Dad's class ring from college, the one he'd always said would be mine someday. As I slipped it onto my thumb, the only finger large enough to hold it, Patterson asked gently, "Do you have any other questions?" "Just one," I said, finding my voice. "Will you continue to represent my interests if my mother pursues legal action?" His smile was reassuring. "Absolutely. Though I doubt it will come to that. Margaret has been advised of the strength of Robert's estate planning. Still, I remain available to you for any legal matters related to your inheritance or otherwise." As I left the office, clutching the envelope of documents, I felt Dad's presence so strongly it nearly took my breath away. He had foreseen this conflict and moved heaven and earth to protect me, even from beyond the grave. The depth of his love was overwhelming. In my car, I called Jessica with the news. Her whoop of celebration made me smile for what felt like the first time in months. "Hannah, this is incredible. Your dad was looking out for you all along." He was, I agreed, tears and laughter mingling. He really was. The following day, I received a text from my mother, the first communication since she'd locked me out. "We need to talk. Come to the house tomorrow at 2 p.m. I suspected the timing wasn't coincidental. Patterson had likely informed them that I'd been officially notified about my inheritance. Part of me wanted to ignore the message out of spite, but I recognized this might be the only opportunity for closure. "I'll be there," I replied simply. Jessica was concerned when I told her. "You're not going alone, are you? After how they treated you?" "I think I should," I said, though the prospect was daunting. "This is between us as a family." "At least let me drive you there and wait outside," she insisted. "If things go badly, I want to be nearby." I gratefully accepted her offer. The thought of returning to the house that had been my home for 24 years, the house I'd been forcibly removed from, created a knot of anxiety in my stomach. The next day, Jessica's car idled at the curb as I walked up the familiar pathway to the front door. Before I could knock, it swung open to reveal Kevin, his expression guarded. "Mom's in the living room," he said stiffly, stepping aside to let me in. The house smelled the same, a mixture of Mom's potpourri and the lemon polish she used on the furniture. Family photos still lined the hallway, including several of Dad and me that I'd half expected to be removed. The normalcy was jarring after everything that had happened. In the living room, Mom sat rigidly on the sofa. Beside her was a thin man with a briefcase who introduced himself as Gerald Watkins, her attorney. My heart sank at this evidence that the meeting was adversarial rather than conciliatory. "Hannah," Mom acknowledged me with a curt nod. "Sit down." I remained standing. "I prefer to stand, thank you." Kevin entered and positioned himself behind Mom's chair, completing the tableau. Them versus me. The imbalance was striking, but I drew strength from Dad's letter in my pocket. "I understand you've been informed about your father's arrangements," Mom began, her tone making the words sound distasteful. "Yes," I confirmed. "I met with Mr. Patterson yesterday." "Then you should also understand that these arrangements are being contested," she continued. "Your father was not of sound mind when he made these changes. He was ill, medicated, and unduly influenced." The attorney nodded in agreement. "We have grounds to challenge based on several factors, including the secretive nature of these changes and the disproportionate distribution." I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm. Dad had himself evaluated by 2 independent doctors before making any changes to his will. He documented everything extensively. Mr. Patterson explained that the provisions are legally secure. Mom's face flushed. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You and your father, always conspiring, always thinking you know better than everyone else." "We weren't conspiring," I said evenly. "I knew nothing about these arrangements until yesterday. You, on the other hand, knew immediately after he died and chose to hide it from me. You locked me out of my home rather than acknowledge what Dad wanted." "This is my home," Mom snapped. "I've lived here for 30 years, maintained it, made it what it is." "Your father had no right to jeopardize that."
He didn't, I pointed out.
"The house is still yours." "He only set aside assets that were separately his." Kevin stepped forward. "Assets that should have been distributed fairly among family. Instead, he played favorites, just like he always did." The accusation stung, but I was prepared for it. From my bag, I withdrew Dad's letter. Dad explained his reasoning. Would you like to hear it in his own words? Without waiting for an answer, I began reading portions aloud. "These choices may cause discord in the family, but they are made with careful thought and complete clarity of mind. I've observed concerning patterns in our family dynamics." As I read, Mom's expression shifted from anger to something more complex, a mixture of shame and defiance. When I reached the part about Dad trying to create balance in the family, Kevin looked away, his jaw tight. I folded the letter and looked directly at my mother. Dad wasn't playing favorites. He was acknowledging that throughout my life, there was an imbalance that he tried to correct. He loved all of us, but he saw what was happening. "What was happening," Mom said bitterly, "was you taking advantage of his soft heart. You were always the difficult one, always needing special attention, special help. Kevin never required any of that. Because Kevin was just like you," I said softly. "You understood each other. Dad understood me." Mom's eyes suddenly filled with tears, the first genuine emotion I'd seen from her since Dad died. "He was pulling away from me at the end," she whispered. "I could feel it. All those private phone calls with you, all those meetings I wasn't included in. 30 years of marriage, and suddenly, I wasn't enough." The raw pain in her voice caught me off guard. I hadn't considered how Dad's close relationship with me might have threatened her. In her own way, perhaps Mom had been as afraid of losing Dad as I had been. "He wasn't pulling away," I said more gently. "He was just trying to make sure everyone would be okay after he was gone. Including me." Kevin shifted uncomfortably. "You could have come to us if you were struggling financially. You didn't need a secret inheritance." "Could I?" I challenged him. "When I asked about the will, you both attacked me. When I persisted, Mom locked me out. You texted me to stay away until I learned my place." Would you really have helped me if I'd come to you in need? Neither answered, the silence damning. The attorney cleared his throat. Regardless of family dynamics, we believe there are grounds to challenge. No, Mom interrupted unexpectedly. No more challenges. Mr. Watkins looked startled. Mrs. Miller, we discussed. I know what we discussed, she said firmly. But I've heard enough. She turned to me, her expression strained but resolute. Your father made his decisions. I don't agree with them, but fighting this will only drag out the pain. Relief washed over me, tempered by wariness. Thank you, I said simply. Mom stood, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. You should know, though, that this doesn't change how I feel about your behavior. You were disrespectful and demanding during a very difficult time for me. I bit back a defensive response, recognizing that for Mom, this limited concession was significant. I'm sorry for raising my voice that night, I offered. I was hurt and confused. She nodded stiffly, then hesitated before adding, You could move back if you want. Your room is still there. The offer surprised me, but I instantly knew my answer. Thank you, but no. I think it's better if I have my own space now. Something like disappointment flickered across her face. As you wish. Kevin remained silent, his expression unreadable. I sensed that while Mom was making a reluctant peace, he wasn't ready to do the same. As the attorney packed up his unused documents, I addressed them both. I'd like to stay in touch. Whatever's happened, we're still family. Dad would want that. We'll see, Mom said noncommittally. These things take time. It wasn't the warm reconciliation part of me had hoped for, but it was a start, an acknowledgement that the door wasn't permanently closed. As I left the house, I felt lighter, as though a burden had been lifted. The confrontation hadn't erased the hurt, but it had lanced a festering wound, allowing healing to begin. Jessica was waiting anxiously in her car. How did it go? She asked as I slid into the passenger seat. I gazed back at the house that had been my whole world for so long. It went okay. Not great, but okay. They're not contesting the will anymore. That's huge, she exclaimed. It is, I agreed. But there's still a long way to go with them. I smiled, feeling a new certainty. The good news is, I don't have to figure it all out today. For the first time in a long time, I have options. As we drove away, I didn't look back. Whatever happened with Mom and Kevin, I was no longer that desperate person standing in the rain with garbage bags. Dad had given me not just financial security, but something far more valuable, the freedom to define family on my own terms. The Maple Street house exceeded my expectations. When I first turned the key in the lock and stepped inside, I was struck by the thoughtfulness behind Dad's gift. It wasn't just any property. It was a charming craftsman bungalow with built-in bookshelves, a window seat perfect for reading, and a sunny kitchen with the same model of coffee maker Dad used every morning. As I explored, I discovered notes Dad had left throughout, taped inside kitchen cabinets, tucked in drawers, even behind the thermostat cover. The back left burner runs hot, one warned. Winter draft by the dining room window, extra weather stripping in the garage, advised another. In the small home office, I found architectural drawings showing Dad's plans for the house, a deck extension, a garden layout, built in shelving designs. The dates on the plans revealed he'd been working on these ideas for years, long before his illness. This hadn't been a hasty decision made while facing mortality. He'd been preparing this haven for me all along. The most poignant discovery came when I opened the hall closet and found a framed photo of Dad and me at my college graduation, wrapped carefully in bubble wrap. He'd removed it from our family home without Mom noticing, a small act of rebellion from a man who rarely defied her directly. That first night in my new house, I cried again, not from grief or anger, but from overwhelming gratitude. Dad had seen me, truly seen me, and made sure I would never be without a home. The financial aspects of my inheritance proved equally life-changing. With Patterson's guidance, I learned to manage the investment portfolio Dad had established. The income it generated, combined with rent from my garage apartment, which I decided to keep as a rental property, meant I could leave the insurance company job and return to graphic design work. I converted the second bedroom into a home office and launched a freelance business. My first client was Mrs. Abernathy, my former landlady, who needed marketing materials for her grandchildren's new bakery. From there, word spread, and within months, I had a steady roster of local clients. My relationship with Mom remained complicated. We spoke occasionally by phone, our conversations careful and superficial. She never visited my new home, though I extended several invitations. Kevin was even more distant, responding to my texts with brief, non-committal replies. The holidays were particularly difficult. I spent Thanksgiving with Jessica's family, grateful for their warmth but acutely aware of the empty chair where Dad should have been, of the family gathering happening without me across town. Christmas brought a surprise, a small package from Mom containing Dad's favorite ornament, a hand-blown glass star he'd bought on their honeymoon. The note simply read, "He would want you to have this." It wasn't a reconciliation, but it was an acknowledgement that Dad's memory connected us still. 6 months after moving into the Maple Street house, I joined a support group for adults dealing with family estrangement. The stories I heard resonated deeply. People cut off for their beliefs, their life choices, their refusal to comply with unhealthy family dynamics. Through their experiences, I gained perspective on my own situation. Estrangement isn't always a failure, the group facilitator explained. Sometimes it's a necessary boundary. The key is to process the grief without letting it define you. Those words became my mantra as I built a new life. I channeled my experiences into creative projects, including a series of illustrated essays about family relationships that garnered attention online. When a local community college offered me an adjunct position teaching graphic design, I accepted eagerly, finding unexpected joy in mentoring students. Using part of my inheritance, I enrolled in a graduate program in visual communications, something Dad had always encouraged, but I'd previously thought impractical. The coursework was challenging but fulfilling, expanding my skills and introducing me to a network of creative professionals. Throughout this period of growth, I maintained a small shrine to Dad in my living room, his watch, his class ring, a selection of his favorite books, and rotating photos of our time together. I spoke to him often, updating him on my life as though continuing our Sunday phone calls. On the 1-year anniversary of being locked out, I visited Dad's grave with a bouquet of his favorite wildflowers. The day was sunny, birds singing in the cemetery trees, a stark contrast to that rainy night when my world had collapsed. "I wish you could see me now, Dad," I said aloud, arranging the flowers in the cemetery vase. "I think you'd be proud. I'm doing well, really well, actually. Your gift gave me more than financial security. It gave me freedom to become fully myself." That evening, I hosted a small gathering at my home. Jessica and her boyfriend, colleagues from the community college, friends from my support group. As we shared a meal around my dining table, I looked at these people who had entered my life during its darkest period and felt a profound sense of peace. "I want to propose a toast," I said, raising my glass. "To chosen family, the people who show up when it matters most." Later, after everyone had gone, I sat on my window seat watching stars appear in the evening sky. The journey had been painful, the loss is real. I still missed Dad every day. I still hoped for eventual reconciliation with Mom and Kevin. But I had learned something profound through all of this. A true home isn't defined by walls or blood relations, but by love freely given and received. The inheritance Dad left me wasn't just property or investments. It was the courage to stand on my own, the wisdom to choose healthy relationships, and the knowledge that I was worthy of being protected and cherished. These gifts would sustain me long after material assets might fade. As I prepare to start my second year in this house that Dad prepared so lovingly, I'm filled with gratitude for the lessons this difficult journey has taught me. Family can be complicated, love can be imperfect, and sometimes the greatest act of care is setting someone free to find their own way. Have you ever experienced a family conflict that changed your perspective on what home truly means? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more stories about navigating life's unexpected turns. And if you know someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in family struggles, share this video with them. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the family we choose is as meaningful as the family we're born into. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.